For anyone planning a holiday meal, despite signs that inflation is easing, the cost of groceries continues to rise.
Have you ever walked out of the grocery store with fewer bags and a higher bill than you remember? There was a time when a weekly shop felt manageable. Bread, eggs, a few extras, and still enough left in your wallet. But what if the places we trust most are quietly shifting the cost without saying a word? Today at the Hidden Menu, we take a deep dive into where your grocery money might really be going. So let us start with 1. Whole Foods. Whole Foods used to feel like the future. A clean store, well-lit aisles, rows of organic produce, and hand-labeled cheeses. It looked like a better way to shop. And at first it was. People went there not just for food, but for a kind of feeling. Healthier, fresher, somehow more honest. But over time, something shifted. Prices that were once high but justifiable crept higher still. Shoppers started calling it whole paycheck, and the nickname stuck because it was true. One former department manager shared that internal pricing guidelines were never just about supply costs. They factored in the store's brand identity and what customers were emotionally willing to pay. That means if the store felt like quality, the price could be quality too, even if the product was sourced similarly to competitors. After Amazon bought the chain, promises of price cuts and digital savings came quickly, but many shoppers say they never truly felt it at the register. Instead, the store rolled out Prime exclusive discounts that quietly divided shoppers into tiers. If you scanned your code, you might get a deal, but if not, you were paying full freight, often without realizing there was a cheaper option. And that digital system came with new tracking, loyalty metrics, and subtle nudges toward brand-preferred items. Some longtime customers began to notice staple items like house brand almond butter or bulk oats were getting more expensive every few months, even though the packaging stayed the same. Former employees have said shrinkflation is quietly built into the rotation. Smaller quantities, thinner containers, subtle recipe changes. Yet the brand still trades on purity, on the idea of doing better. That's what makes the prices sting more, not just the number on the tag, but the feeling that trust is being sold back to you in smaller and smaller bites. It is not just expensive, it is curated to feel like it should be. And if you don't look closely, you may never notice how little you're getting for how much you're still willing to pay. 2. Safeway. Safeway is one of those stores that always seems to be there. Not flashy, not fancy, just dependable. But walk through the aisles today and you may start to feel like something's not quite adding up. One shopper shared that she picked up 3 basic items, milk, cereal, and bananas, and paid more than $10 without touching anything organic or premium. The store runs loyalty programs, coupons, and digital deals that promise savings, but only if you scan, clip, or log in just right. If you forget, the difference at checkout can be staggering. Former cashiers have admitted that many of the discounts are set against inflated shelf prices to begin with, meaning the savings are only real if you compare against a price you were never going to pay. One former employee even said management would occasionally raise base prices ahead of weekly promotions to create the illusion of a deal. And then there's the layout. Brand name products dominate the eye-level shelves, while lower-cost alternatives are placed lower or farther out of reach. Shoppers looking to stay on budget may find themselves having to hunt, crouch, or settle. Over time, even the store brands have crept up in cost. A loaf of house brand sandwich bread that used to be $1.99 now pushes past $3 in some locations, with no obvious improvement in quality. Safeway also relies heavily on multi-buy pricing, 3 for 10, 2 for 7, deals that sound good but lock you into buying more than you need. And if you just want one, the price per unit often jumps without warning. It is a system designed to steer, not help. One former Safeway stalker said he used to spend hours rearranging tags to match confusing promotions, knowing most people would just throw it in the cart without doing the math. You are not just shopping, you are navigating a maze built to make you overspend. And even when you think you are being smart, the store is already 2 steps ahead. 3. Kroger. Kroger is one of the largest grocery chains in the country. And with size comes power, but also a strange kind of invisibility. Because Kroger stores go by many names, Fred Meyer, King Soopers, Ralph's, Smith's, It is easy to walk in without even realizing who owns what. But the pricing strategy is often the same. Loyalty card discounts, member-only pricing, and long aisles of branded promotions that look like deals but often are not. One shopper wrote that he bought a pack of Kroger brand shredded cheese on sale, only to realize that the deal price was the same as the regular price just a week earlier. It is the kind of game that relies on memory being short and packaging being loud. And for seniors or folks without smartphones, the system is even harder to track. Digital coupons, app-only deals, or clip-to-card requirements that add a layer of friction to every dollar saved. Former Kroger cashiers have said they were trained not to explain discounts unless asked directly, because once you start pointing out how conditional the savings are, people tend to walk away. There's also the growing presence of Kroger's own brands on the shelves: Simple Truth, Private Selection, products that often mirror name brand versions in packaging and price, but with smaller quantities or slight ingredient tweaks. One former employee shared that pricing for store brand items is closely tied to competitor pricing, updated region by region based on local behavior. That means your grocery bill can fluctuate just because of your zip code. And while many Kroger stores feel clean and well stocked, shoppers have noted that some prices vary even between two stores just a few miles apart. That lack of consistency means you are never quite sure what the bill will be. And in a store that big, with so many moving parts, it is easy to miss the cents that become dollars and the deals that are only deals in name. You come in for groceries, you leave with groceries. But somewhere in between, the math just does not add up the way it used to. If any of this is starting to sound a little too familiar, go ahead and leave a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the hidden menu so you never miss what they are not saying out loud. 4. Publix. Publix has built its reputation on being friendly, clean, and just a little more polished than your average supermarket. In much of the South, it is the store families have relied on for generations. Something dependable, a little bit proud, and just familiar enough to feel like home. But if you spend time comparing prices aisle by aisle, that warm feeling starts to come with a cost. A high one. Loyal customers often say, "You pay more, but you get more." And for a long time, that felt true. But now, the price tags have outpaced the experience, and some regulars are quietly asking if it is still worth it. Basic items like milk, cereal, canned beans often run 30 to 50 cents higher than the exact same products at nearby chains. One shopper did a full cart price comparison between Publix and a national discount grocer just a few blocks away. The receipt came out nearly $30 higher at Publix, with no specialty items and no organic swaps, just normal, everyday groceries. And the worst part? It does not feel like it's happening in one big leap. It creeps. A few cents here, a smaller package there. Prices adjust slowly, so you might not even notice until your budget stops stretching the way it used to. Former Publix employees have said that store managers are given wide flexibility in pricing based on local competition and neighborhood demographics. That means two locations in the same city can have wildly different prices, simply based on what the company thinks you are willing to pay. One former team leader shared that, even within her own district, items like deli meat and household cleaners varied by as much as 20% depending on the zip code. And unlike discount stores that trade on affordability, Publix leans hard into brand perception. The floors are spotless, the employees are polite. The store brand products look like boutique offerings often priced just under national brands, even when made in the same facilities. Their famous buy one get one deals, often celebrated in weekly ads, aren't always as generous as they seem. One customer noticed that before a BOGO goes live, the shelf price on some items quietly climbs. What was once $2.50 becomes $3.29, just in time for the promotion. So while you are getting two items for the price of one, that one costs more than it did last week. It's not technically deceptive, but it does ask you not to notice, or not to care. And then there is the fresh food section. Publix's pride, the bakery, the deli, the subs. All designed to create a sense of quality you can't get anywhere else. But even here, inflation has crept in. Sandwiches that used to be $6.99 now hover near $10. Slices of cake, once thick and rich, have shrunk by nearly a third in some stores, while prices remain the same. It is a slow erosion of value hidden behind polite customer service and well-lit produce bins. You do not walk out of Publix feeling like you were tricked. You walk out feeling fine, but maybe just a little lighter, your bag's thinner, your wallet leaner, your trust stretched one receipt at a time. It is not a scam, it is just business. And business at Publix means knowing exactly how much people are willing to pay to keep feeling like they are shopping somewhere better. 5. Aldi. Aldi built its identity on being the smart shopper's secret. No frills, no music, no endless aisles, just low prices, stacked boxes, and that warehouse vibe that made you feel like you were cutting out the middleman. And for a long time, that was true. People would whisper about Aldi like it was a cheat code. You brought your own bags, paid a quarter for a cart, and walked out with a full week's groceries for half the cost of the big chains. But lately, more and more customers are starting to notice that the secret is slipping. Prices are climbing, and not just a little. Basic items like eggs, milk, bread, once the hallmarks of Aldi savings, have risen sharply, sometimes even matching prices at stores with more variety and better atmosphere. A recent trip for one shopper showed that a gallon of milk cost more at Aldi than it did at Walmart just down the road. And while inflation is a factor everywhere, what stings here is the expectation. Aldi was supposed to be different. But now shoppers are doing double takes at the register, wondering where the savings went. Former corporate employees say Aldi's pricing strategy has quietly shifted in recent years. Instead of undercutting every competitor, the company now adjusts prices based on what nearby stores are charging, aiming for close enough rather than cheapest. In some cities, that means you're not saving more. You're just shopping in a stripped-down version of a more expensive store. And with fewer brand options to compare, it is harder to catch when the cost sneaks up. You think you're getting the best deal because the lighting is fluorescent and the boxes are cut open on the shelves, but the math may say otherwise. And then there is the quality shift. Some loyal Aldi fans have noticed a change in house brand products that used to punch above their weight. Crackers that crumble too easily, canned beans that taste oddly metallic, frozen items with less flavor than they had just a year ago. It's not across the board, but it is enough to raise eyebrows. One longtime shopper shared that the bakery bread she used to love now feels gummy and chemical. Others say the produce goes bad quicker, the meat feels thinner, the deal's less satisfying. Part of the issue is growth. As ALD has expanded across the US, the pressure to scale has led to regional suppliers, inconsistent quality, and a quiet shift in priorities. The company that used to brag about skipping marketing altogether now runs regular campaigns and seasonal rollouts. Special buys, once a fun treasure hunt, now feel like clearance racks stocked with oddball overstock. The charm of discovery has been replaced by the churn of retail momentum. And the checkout speed, once a point of pride, is now a common complaint. Fewer lanes open, longer waits, harried cashiers trying to hit metrics while still tossing groceries into carts without breaking eggs. That breakneck pace was once part of the appeal. Now it just feels exhausting. Aldi is still cheaper than many stores, but not as much as it used to be, and not enough to make you ignore the corners being cut. The lights still buzz, the carts still need a quarter, and the savings are still there, just not in the way they once were. It is no longer the best-kept secret. It is just another store learning how far it can stretch your trust before it snaps. 6. Walmart. Walmart is the kind of store that seems too big to question. For millions of Americans, it is the default. One-stop shopping, price match guarantees, rollback signs that promise value, and shelves packed with everything from bananas to bedsheets. But if you pay attention long enough, you start to notice the difference between price and value, because they are not always the same thing. Over the years, Walmart has quietly shifted from being the place where everything was cheaper to the place where everything only looks cheaper. And that difference shows up most clearly in the grocery aisle. You pick up a can of beans, store brand, familiar label, and it rings up a few cents higher than it did last week. Then a gallon of milk, then sandwich bread. Nothing dramatic, just small enough that you do not question it in the moment. But those pennies add up, and when you check your receipt, you start wondering how your $30 list turned into $50. It is not just inflation. Walmart's pricing strategy is based on psychological thresholds, what former pricing analysts call comfort points. That means they track what price feels low to the customer and use that to push the boundary as high as possible without breaking it. A can of soup at 98 cents feels like a deal. Raise it to $1.02 and it no longer registers the same way. So they build everything around that illusion, rounding down, removing decimals from signage, making you feel like you are spending less even when you are not. Former Walmart department managers have shared that prices change constantly, sometimes daily, depending on local demand, inventory, and even weather. One former employee said, "We could charge more for bread before a storm and no one would notice because we made sure the rollback sign stayed up." And when you dig into Walmart's great value products, the house brand that is supposed to save you money, you start to see another pattern. Package sizes shrink, formulas change. One shopper noticed her favorite brand of frozen vegetables quietly lost 3 ounces but kept the same price. Another noticed that family-size cereal boxes looked the same but held less, just enough to stretch out the refill cycle and bump return trips. There's also the issue of quality. Walmart's scale means they source products at enormous volume, often negotiating costs down with suppliers. But that pressure doesn't just lower prices, it lowers standards. Produce may look fresh under bright lights, but multiple shoppers have posted photos of moldy berries, bruised apples, and green bananas that never ripen properly. The meat department has similar complaints: thinner cuts, too much fat, chicken that smells off within a day of purchase. Former employees from distribution centers have admitted that produce rotation policies are inconsistent, especially in smaller or rural stores. And then there's substitution. If you order online or use pickup, you've probably seen this. One brand swapped for another, one size replaced with 2 smaller ones, prices adjusted without much warning. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but you never feel fully in control. The system is built on volume and speed, not precision. And if you do not catch the change in the app, it becomes another quiet charge on your bill. Walmart works because it's convenient, fast, and familiar. But behind the blue vest and friendly rollback signs is a company that has learned exactly how to press its advantage. They do not raise prices all at once. They do it by the ounce, by the item, by the subtle shift in what your cart actually contains. You leave thinking you saved. But the truth is, what you saved might not be worth what you gave up to get it. 7. Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's sells a feeling. It is not just a grocery store, it is an experience. Hand-drawn signs, Hawaiian-shirted staff, and shelves filled with quirky, niche products you did not know you needed. People joke that they go in for almond butter and come out with truffle oil popcorn and 3 kinds of salsa. And on the surface, it all feels charming and fair. But when you step back from the fun labels and clever marketing, a different picture starts to show, one that looks a lot like a high-priced boutique disguised as a bargain store. Trader Joe's is famous for its private label model. Almost everything in the store is their own brand, which creates the illusion of value and uniqueness. But according to former insiders, many of those products are sourced from the same manufacturers that supply larger chains. You're just paying more for the novelty. Take the frozen meals, for example. The packaging is whimsical, the name's inventive, but one former supplier said that Trader Joe's versions of their entrees were nearly identical to products sold elsewhere under different labels, just with smaller portion sizes and prettier boxes. And if you compare ounce for ounce, those smaller sizes often mean you're paying more without realizing it. It's a quiet kind of markup, one that hides behind personality and design. Trader Joe's does not put prices on shelves that scream deal. They rely on the vibe. But if you walk through with a calculator, that vibe gets expensive. A shopper once broke it down. Their go-to snack mix cost 20 cents per ounce, more than the same ingredients bought separately at a discount chain. Another noticed that the so-called value wine was cheaper at other stores that sold the exact same bottle under its original label. And then there's the issue of selection. Trader Joe's prides itself on a curated inventory, fewer items, fewer choices. But that limitation is part of the strategy. Fewer options mean fewer price comparisons, and that control lets them set prices just high enough that you still feel like you are winning, even when you are not. One former store manager shared that items that sold too well sometimes disappeared, not because of supply, but because they disrupted balance in the pricing model. The store is not built to keep you stocked. It is built to keep you interested. Even the layout plays a role. High demand staples, milk, eggs, bread, are placed in the far corners of the store, forcing you to pass the newest seasonal snacks, frozen treats, or impulse items along the way. And it works. People go in for 2 things and leave with 10. That's not bad marketing, it's behavioral design. But what happens when the prices stop matching the feeling? Shoppers have started noticing that their weekly trips are getting more expensive. A basket that used to be $30 is now $45. They leave still smiling, still charmed, but a little confused at how it added up so fast. Trader Joe's hasn't raised prices dramatically. They have done it slowly, carefully, within a system that hides excess behind whimsy. And for a while, people do not question it, because it does not feel like a store that overcharges. It feels like a friend. But friends don't quietly charge you extra just because you like them. And when the charm starts to fade, what you are left with is a cart full of things you probably did not need, and a receipt that feels longer than it should. If any of these stores have ever left you wondering where your money really went, share your story in the comments, leave a like if this felt familiar, and subscribe to the hidden menu so you never have to shop blind again. And remember, the truth is not always on the menu.